Hi, folks. This is Ridley Met coming to you with a Red's bedtime story. And I just think I did a live chat with a few of you people out there. And somebody brought up something about Cook County Deputy Sheriff. And the deputy sheriff was kind of a con man. And actually, he was only a bailiff in a courtroom. So he had an honorary badge he could flash around. But at any rate, what he did was he went around on a job that he had selling advertising on bus stop, you know, places where you all your benches in Chicago, where they have the bus stops and things like that. And he was taking advance money and promising people different locations where they could advertise their business. And what happened was uh, a friend of mine, and an ex employee of mine, Don Dresden, had a computer school. He was big in computers. Matter of fact, he taught me computers. And this is way back in the 80s. So what had happened was Don paid for the space, but he borrowed the money from me. And so sometime later, he was complaining about this guy. And I said, "What happened to my money?" And he said, "The guy kept it." And I said, "Well, what's he going to do with you?" And he said, "Nothing." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "He's just going to, he beat me out of it. I asked him for the money back. He said, no way." So I said, "Well, get him into your office." And Don's office was on LaSalle Street, and I was on Wells Street. But right down the street from me on Wells Street was Frank Schweiss. His building was right back against, across the alley from Don's building. So I had Don leave the back door open, and I said, "Give me a call when you see him pull up or he comes to the door and hits the intercom and wants to come up." And that way, when I come over there, I'll just slip in the back door. He won't know anything. So the guy, he gives me the call. The guy's there. I'd never seen this man before. And Don's desk was sitting up back on the window facing LaSalle Street. So the light would come in and it would be on this other guy's face. And the other guy was sitting with his face towards Don. He was wearing sunglasses. Big guy. I mean, tons of blubber. This guy was huge. I mean, there was so much fat on him, it was a joke. So I come strolling into the back door and I sit down all the way on the one side where there was a couch. And I'm just sitting there. And I didn't say anything when I came into the room. I just sat down. And occasionally this guy's looking over me, and he's not saying anything. But he turns around, finally asked Don, he said, "Who is this guy?" And I hadn't said a word. I mean, I'm just minding my own business. I wanted to observe what was going to happen. And so he said, "You don't want to know him." He said, "He could be your worst nightmare." And so I waited till they were in a heated argument. And when they were in a heated argument, I said, "Wait a second." And the guy looked at me and I said, "Are you a cop?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Then prove it." And he pulls out his badge, Deputy Sheriff, Cook County Deputy Sheriff, and shows it to me. And so while he's showing it to me, I pick it up in my hand, I'm looking at it, and I take it and I put it in my shirt pocket. And then I said, "Where's your gun? Where's your pistol?" And he said, "I don't have one on me." Well, the rules in Chicago were, if you carried a badge, you carried a gun. If you carried a gun, you carried a badge. But this guy didn't follow the rules because he was connected with some alderman. So anyway, I went over and I grabbed him, and I didn't believe him about not having a pistol. And when I did grab him, uh, I think I broke his sunglasses or something like that. But I moved him all the way from the chair all the way over by the couch and put him on his knees and his arms up to the couch. And I was patting him down, and there was so much blubber on him. He could have hidden a weapon someplace. I mean, easily. But I was fairly concerned or convinced that he wasn't. He wasn't hiding a weapon. So I got him up, put him back in his chair, and he said, "You can't manhandle me like that. Do you know who I am?" And he got real cocky with me. He said, "I'm connected." And I said, "Really? I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. Make up your mind. Either you're a crook or a cop. Either you're with the outfit, organized crime, or you're a cop. Make up your mind." And he said, "You're in a lot of trouble." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "Kidnapping." And I said, "Really?" I said, "There's the phone. Call the police. I'm not holding you against your will. You can get up and walk out of here anytime you want." And so the guy reaches over, grabs the phone, calls it, and I'm only hearing one side, his side. But he says, "Yeah. I'm at. I don't know where I'm at. I'm on LaSalle Street, and I'm being held. I've been kidnapped." Well, the dispatcher, the way he talked to the dispatcher, he didn't know the address. He didn't know this. He didn't know that. The dispatcher was kind of confused, and I started to laugh. So I got up and left the room, and Don was sitting there with him. And I walked out of the room, and I said, "The heck with it. I'm going home." So I went home, and I called Don, and I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I don't know." He said, "The Chicago police pulled up downstairs, and he went down to greet them. But he said, my door locks. You have to get buzzed in." And he said, he's tried to get buzzed in a couple times, but they won't let him. And so they didn't believe that he was a police officer. He didn't have any ID on him, and they took him away. Weeks went by, a long time went by. And finally, he gave, I don't know if it was $2,500 or $3,500 back to Don. He gave him his money back. He was talking about giving him different locations, and Don said, for his advertising. And Don said, "That's not the one I had." And so finally, he just wound up giving the money back. Well, after I heard he gave the money back, I had a alphanumerical sheet for deputy sheriffs, any police officer. I knew where they were with, or what their names were, what their badges were, and I went by all that. So I had his name and everything. I looked him up on the alpha sheet, and when I did, I saw that he was just a bailiff in the Skokie courtroom. So what I did was I called a friend of mine and said, "Who sponsored this idiot?" And he told me the name of the alderman. They just happened to be both the same anticity. They're both Jewish. So, and it was kind of a Jewish ward. So I went over to the ward. I called and tried to make an appointment. And they said, "What's it in regard to?" And I really didn't want to say anything. But I finally got the appointment. I went over, saw the alderman, and he said, "What can I do to help you?" And it was a kind of thing where I turned around and told him, "It's not what you can do for me, it's what I can do for you." And I took the badge out. I was in a suit and tie. And I took the badge out and threw it on his desk. And I said, "This guy's a disgrace. He's shaking down people. He's doing all kinds of bad things." And he said, "Oh, that's why he hasn't been able to come into work. He's been trying to get a new badge." And I said, "Well, I've had his badge. I've had his ID." And I said, "But if you want this to become headline news, or you want it to become public, let's go at it." And the alderman turned around and looked at me and said, "No." He said, "Thank you very much." He said, "If there's ever anything I can do for you, I'll be glad to do it." And never did have any contact with him again. But that's the story about Cook County deputy sheriffs and advertising. So I hope you enjoy this and have a very, very good evening. God bless you.